Good afternoon. This is Chief Ava Hale from the Six Nations Elected Council. We are now entering or just finishing our 4th month as the new council, 56th elected council, and what we want to do is provide regular updates to the community. This is one of the forums we want to do that through, is doing interviews with some of our local media. And also going on the radio station and putting in information in our newsletter. I'll just begin. This is the first one we're going to do, as I said, and we hope to do this on a regular basis. I'll just begin by saying that we went through an extensive orientation process since the beginning of January. We heard from the directors of all the council departments and from many of the external agencies that council has an association with, such as Six Nations, Polytech, Grand River Employment and Training, Grand River Post-Secondary, Woodland Cultural Center. We still have a few more to hear from, which will then complete that part of the orientation process. We've also established our committees. We have 3 major committees: Human Services, which looks after health, social services, and parks and recreation, and the chair of that is Councillor Terry General. We have Physical and Economic Development, which looks after public works and economic development, and the chair is Daryl Hill. And our last one is Corporate and Emergency Services, which looks after lands and membership, police, and fire and administrative stuff. Robert Johnson is the chair of that committee. We also have council representatives on all of the external committees and we have appointed reps there. As part of the orientation process, we also asked members of council to submit questions and concerns and issues that they think that this council should try and address over our term. We went through all of those issues and questions, and we had a priority setting exercise. And I'm glad to report that all councillors have stepped up to take the lead on various issues. So just some of the important issues and priorities that we're dealing with, and some of these will probably be reported on an ongoing basis, but one of the main ones is education. The day after this council was sworn in, we held a rally in front of the Federal Building in Brantford to protest the proposed First Nations Education Act that the government is attempting to impose on us. We also held a community meeting on December 5th where the community reaffirmed the decision to reject this proposed legislation. 2 other community meetings were also held, and another one was planned for Wednesday, March 19th. There was discussion about where the community should go with respect to our education system. Should we talk about community control? I think one of the issues that is forcing us to talk about this is the fact that the government wants to propose legislation. And if we don't do something about our own education system, then they will under this proposed legislation should they pass it. On February 7th, the Prime Minister announced that there will be a new act, and it's now called First Nations Control of First Nations Education Act, which is replacing the proposed one that was initially called First Nations Education Act. We haven't been able to get a lot of information from either the Indian Affairs Department or the Assembly of First Nations on this proposed act, although at first glance for us it looks like it's very similar to the one that we were opposed last December. It does have funding attached to it, but none of that funding will flow until 2015 or 2016. But we are trying to get more information on that, and as we get it, we'll report it to the community. We were also approached by Indian Affairs from Ottawa headquarters to participate in a federal review of all our schools in our community. Apparently the federal schools are to be reviewed every 5 years, but our schools haven't been reviewed for 15 years. Council has agreed to take part in this review, which means that we will be able to have input into who the contractor will be, how the process will unfold, and any of the interviews that are taking place. We've also asked for approval of the final report before it is submitted back to Indian Affairs. Councillor Helen Miller has stepped up to take the lead on all of the issues related to education, and she recently submitted a report that was handed out to the community. Another big issue we're going to be dealing with is tobacco and another impending legislation from the government, which is called Bill C-10. This has been introduced by the feds. It is at 3rd reading, and we're hoping that we can make a presentation to the Senate if it goes to the Senate. If this bill passes, it'll have far-reaching effects for our people who are involved in the tobacco industry, as far as criminalizing people for transporting tobacco. The Iroquois Caucus, which Six Nations also takes part in, with Oneida, Wata, Tyendinaga, Akwesasne, Ganawagi and Kanasatake have already signed a joint declaration denouncing this bill. Six Nations Elected Council has also issued its own statement denouncing this bill. We are planning a community meeting on March 20th or March 26th, which will be held in the Great Room at Polytech to talk about strategies that we can employ to try and defeat this bill. We'll be talking about political strategies and maybe public relations strategies. I believe that our community should also start thinking about developing our own tobacco law and regulating and controlling tobacco in our own community. And I would look to people involved in the tobacco industry to step up and take the lead, or even, having input into what the community is going to do with respect to this issue. Another issue we've been dealing with is policing. Our policing agreement, tripartite policing agreement, which was signed with the federal government and the provincial government and Six Nations, was signed in 2009, and we've just been getting one-year extensions every year up until the end of this month, which is 2014. On January 31st, we were provided with a new template for a new multi-year agreement for 4 years, which was quite different from the existing agreement. There are clauses in there that we weren't happy with, and we've been having heavy negotiations with the federal government, and we've been calling on supporters in the opposition parties to help us either get the existing agreement extended for one more year or to get the template amended. Where it is our hope that we can get this resolved before the end of March, and hopefully we're going to be successful. The fire hall, the old fire hall, has been demolished, and Grand River Enterprises has made a commitment to provide funding towards the construction of a new fire hall. We are most grateful for their contribution. We've established a committee to move forward with the construction of the new fire hall. Matrimonial real property. As the community knows, Six Nations has adopted its own MRP law, is what we call it, which will deal with the house and the land in the event of marital breakup. In doing so, we have stated that the federal legislation that was adopted by the federal government will not be applicable to our community, as our law was enacted by the Six Nations Elected Council before the federal legislation was passed. We are now in the implementation phase of getting our own law going. We're setting up all the administration components that need to be in place to ensure that we can implement it. We've also had several individuals who have taken mediation training, which is going to play an important role in the whole implementation of our law. We're hopeful that things can be settled at the mediation stage. We also plan to hire a coordinator who will begin hopefully in the new fiscal year. Council has just recently decided as well to combine the MRP committee with a justice committee, because if it gets to the stage of enforcement, our justice committee is something that will need to be in place. So work is continuing on looking at that and maybe establishing our own justice system. Taxation, community held a community meeting in September, and it was agreed that we would work with some community members in establishing a community group. There is a group that is in place and has been holding events every Thursday night at the Great Theatre and bringing in different speakers. And Council has helped to assist them with bringing in those speakers, and we also have representatives on those committees. We've also are encouraging the AFN to have a national forum on taxation so that we can come together with other First Nations to develop strategies and how we can, fight the taxation that the federal government's continuing to try and impose on us. They are also assisting us in trying to get a meeting with the Minister of Finance so that we can talk about taxation issues. This is also an ongoing issue that's being discussed at the Iroquois caucus meetings with the other Iroquois communities. On the land issues, we have held meetings with both the City of Brantford and the County of Brant on the boundary discussions that they are involved in. We have developed a process that would ensure that Six Nations is consulted and accommodated with respect to these discussions. This process has been forwarded to the city and the county, and we are waiting for feedback from them. I have also stated that whoever ends up with a jurisdiction over these lands will still have to consult and accommodate Six Nations. So those discussions are ongoing. The property on West Street was previously left to Six Nations from a Fuller estate, and this year the property put the property up for a tax sale because we had not paid any of the property taxes. We were unable to negotiate an exemption to the exemption with the city by the tax sale date, so we paid the taxes in order that we would not lose the property, which is quite valuable. We're now taking the city to court in an effort to get those property taxes back. We are also strategizing on how to get the federal and the provincial government back to the table to resume the negotiations on our land rights. The federal government is using the excuse that Six Nations is a divided community and they do not know who to talk to, so they're talking to no one. This is why it is so important that our community present a united front. We are also planning to do an education campaign and to visit the municipalities up and down the Haldeman Tract to inform people of our global solution and to tell them about the history of our land rights. I am also doing several speaking engagements with various groups such as the Rotary Clubs, Women's Clubs, student groups, and will continue to do so in the future so that we can educate people about our land rights. We will continue to seek meetings with various government politicians to try and get the negotiators back to the table. On health, I recently attended 2 meetings on the non-insured health benefits, which cover dental, vision, drugs, medical transportation, medical equipment, and mental health. The roundtable was organized by the Chiefs of Ontario, where we were able to explain many of the issues that our people are faced with, which are common across the country and the province, where people are getting turned down for drugs that they need, they're getting turned down for medical equipment that they need. I just attended a national conference hosted by the AFN on March 19th and 20th, and they're beginning the strategies to develop an action plan so that we can ensure that our community members get the full benefit of the non-insured health benefits. This is going to be a long process developing the plan, and we're hoping that things will be moving along and we'll keep people informed. If anyone has issues or can give me cases of that they've had with respect to getting turned down in non-insured health benefits, it will help us in developing the action plan. The thermal treatment plant, the machinery at the landfill, is a demonstration project right now. Council has said that they need to see it operating for a good length of time before they make the final decision on whether to go ahead and purchase the machinery. It should be noted that this demo is not brand new. It is located outside, and it's been in one of the harshest winters that we've had in a long time. This has caused a lot of problems with it operating properly. We are hopeful that it will prove to be an effective solution to the garbage problems we have at the landfill. We do need to present an alternative to the present method of dumping our garbage in the pits, because we can't continue to do that. The pits are getting full and it's going to contaminate the land around us. So we are hopeful that this machinery will work. I know the community has a lot of concerns and we're trying to address them. And we're continuing to work with the owner who is demonstrating the project, the machinery, and we'll keep you updated on this. The water treatment plant, we held our grand opening on January 24th. Now one of our priorities is ensure that we can get piping for the whole community so that everyone will have access to new water. Now that we have the new water treatment plant operating, the water distribution system will need to be swabbed, which means that the pipes need to be cleaned in the summer or fall of 2014. This maintenance activity will impact those people who are currently on the water system by potentially disrupting the service. We will be requesting that residents will be running their taps. It'll also may impact the truck filling station by causing service disruptions. We want to start informing the community about this now so that once a specialty contractor is hired and a schedule is developed, people will be aware of it. If anyone has any questions or concerns, they can contact Public Works at 445-4242. On the roads, effective March 31st at 9 a.m., there will be a 4-way stop at the intersection of Tuscarora Road and 4th Line. This is a new intersection stop, and we hope that you will obey the signs and stop when you get there. On gaming, we are continuing to experience cutbacks from both the federal and the provincial governments, and we need to look at other ways of generating revenue for our community. One way might be to look at gaming, including casino. Do we want a casino? Do we want a poker room? Do we want to get horse racing? This is something that Council is going to talk about, and we may need to convene a community meeting to just see what the community thinks about gaming. Economic development is another revenue generating source, and we will continue to pursue economic development projects and partnerships similar to the one we have with Samsung. We will also be developing a development corporation and setting up a community fund which will oversee the funds that we are able to generate. Pan Am Games, Six Nations has signed a memorandum of understanding with Pan Am TO 2015 which indicates that Six Nations will be involved in many aspects of the Pan Am Games with activities in Toronto. And we also hope to hold a number of activities in our own community, including lacrosse demonstrations, cultural festivals, etc. Kevin Sandy has been hired as the Pan Am coordinator and is working on bringing the Pan Am mascot, whose name is Patchy, to the Six Nations schools. This will be an exciting event for our community, and more information will be provided in future reports. The Pan Am Games will be held in July 2015 and will be followed by the Pan Am Games in August. On communications, we are discussing various ways, as I mentioned, in which we can improve our communications and getting more information out to the community. The radio reports and this report are some of the ways we're going to do that. We are also increasing information on social media and hoping to upgrade our newsletter so that we can get more info out there. If anyone has any other ideas or suggestions on how we can do that, it would certainly be appreciated. Council will also be concentrating on doing more advocacy and lobbying on Parliament Hill and at Queen's Park on a variety of issues, including the funding cuts that are continuously being made and the imposition of legislation upon us without our free, prior, and informed consent. Immediate issues that we will be lobbying on are Bill C-10 and education. We will also be looking at getting involved in the international level by attending the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues in May. Unity is a big issue, and as I mentioned earlier, it is important that our community become more united so that we can jointly deal with the many issues that are facing our people. We are the largest populated First Nation in the country, and if we all look at the big picture and see what we could do if we work together, we could be very powerful. Since I have been in office, I have met with various groups, and I believe that they all feel that we need to work together. Just recently, the elected council signed a declaration of unity, and it is hoped that everyone in the community will sign it and that we can all come together to celebrate the declaration. The elected council has held meetings with the following individuals since the beginning of January. Minister David Zimmer, Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, met with full council. Minister Glenn Murray, Ministry of Infrastructure and Transportation, met with Representatives Council during the Good Roads Convention that was held in Toronto at the end of February. We are also working on a date when the Minister can visit Six Nations. We are talking to him about assistance for bridges, roads, and piping for water throughout the whole territory. We've also met with Speaker Dave Levesque at his apartments at Queen's Park. Minister Brad Dogood, the Minister of Colleges, Trainings and Universities, visited Six Nations a couple of weeks ago and toured Six Nations Polytech and the Ongwahonge Skills and Technical Trade Center. Tim Hudak, the Provincial Progressive Conservative leader, met with representatives of Six Nations along with Mayor Chris Field from the City of Brantford and Mayor Ron Eddy. We are also going to be meeting with Minister Teresa Perusa, who's the Minister of Community, Child and Youth Services in Toronto later this week. We are also seeking to secure meetings with other federal ministers, provincial ministers. I have also met with different individuals and attended meetings such as the Mayor of Southgate, Brian Milne. I've met with the President of Wilfrid Laurier University, the Executive Director of the YMCA. I've attended the Iroquois Caucus that was held in Ganawagi at the beginning of February, and the next Iroquois Caucus meeting will be held at Six Nations on April 3rd and 4th. I also took part in the AFN Special Assembly in December in Gatineau, Quebec, and I've taken part in political confederacy meetings at the Chiefs of Ontario level. I also attended the Independent First Nations quarterly meeting that was held in Toronto in January and was a guest of Union Gas at the Canadian Council on Aboriginal Business Gala. I have also had a number of speaking engagements with Osgoode Hall law students who visited Six Nations. I spoke at the Women's Leadership Forum that was sponsored by GREAT, at the Youth Forum that was held at Six Nations and was sponsored by the Chiefs of Ontario, the Heritage Day Conference, which was held at Six Nations Polytech, the Traditional Ecological Knowledge Conference, which was held at Six Nations Tourism and hosted by the Chiefs of Ontario. I also attended the Ontario First Nations Technical Services Corporation Water Symposium, which was held in Niagara Falls, the Pen Pals exhibition in Caledonia, the Hamilton Area Women's Council on International Women's Day, and opening ceremonies at the Little NHL that Six Nations Minor Hockey hosted. Some of the upcoming events are this Friday, March 28th, Haldimand, Norfolk, Hamilton, Brant Local Health Integration Network will be holding an Aboriginal Health Engagement Day at Polytech, and I will be attending that. The Health Foundation recently held a gala on March 22nd, and the Six Nations Public Library will be holding their gala on April 11th. So it's been a busy 4 months, and I'm sure the next few months are going to be busy. We're hoping to provide monthly reports to the community, so that'll be the report for now, and we'll do another report next month. Thank you. Yeah.